Welcome to Green Ball Extra. My name is Craig Easdown, and today I've got a good double episode on the Interpro series. First of all, we're going to speak to High Performance Director Richard Holdsworth, and then we're going to talk to National Selector Andrew White. But first of all, welcome, Richard.
Hi, Craig. Nice to be on.
So there's a big announcement last week about the Interprovincial series. What was the key thinking behind the recent changes?
Yeah, well, the Interpros is our flagship event for our professional players. You know, it allows them to play first class and list day cricket. And without county cricket now that many of our players have played for many years, it's also our main vehicle to prepare our players for international cricket. Therefore, the standard needs to be as high as possible, and we have to have best v best in terms of the players involved. And there's no doubt that the competitiveness has been reducing in recent years, and therefore we absolutely felt it needed an overhaul.
So was the heavy dominance of Leinster Lightning over the last 8 years maybe an influence in that thinking?
Yes, it certainly was. I mean, with the current structure, the competition has not really seen best v best. We need to have the best players playing against each other on a regular basis. And we've a highly talented group of players that weren't being selected due to the greater strength of one province. And therefore, we needed to change the structure to ensure those players of the future get a real chance to play at that level against and with some of our international players and get themselves ready for international cricket. So that was another reason for the change.
The Interpros were re-established in 2013. I mean, from your perspective, has the competition been achieving its objectives?
I think in the early years, there's no doubt that the competition allowed many more players to play with and against the best players in Ireland, which previously wasn't happening. This has helped those players based in Ireland to better prepare themselves for international cricket, particularly. But it's also allowed our coaches and selectors to have a much better look at our home-based talent, look at succession planning for the Ireland team for the future. I think one of the other reasons was to help grow the provincial unions and help professionalise their coaching and administration. Traditionally, for decades, provincial unions have been run by outstanding volunteers, but every other full member country has professional provincial state associations. So there's no doubt that a few years on now, we have general managers, we have full-time head coaches, pathway manager, cricket operations people, club development officers, and many more helping to grow the game, professionalise the game. And hopefully we've played a big part in helping grow their brand around the interprovincial competition and allow them the tools to develop the game in their own region.
Yes, last week's announcement, Munster featured quite prominently in the announcement. So what are the main changes for the Reds and for cricket in the Southern Province?
Yeah, look, cricket in Munster is smaller than the provinces in terms of numbers, and we need to help Munster grow and improve the game in the province. Participation and grassroots are key to this. They need more players playing the game. Young players also need to be able to aspire to greater things. And therefore, it's always been important to have a Munster team playing in the Interpros, something that the board has very much had as part of its strategy in recent years. At the moment, there are not many local players of high enough standard to compete for a place in the Munster Reds team. And therefore, many of their players will be from other provinces for now. That's the reason that we've invested in their talent pathway programs and established a Cricket Ireland emerging interprovincial competition to give their local talent a chance to develop and play more emerging interpro cricket, more matches, in the hope that they will develop into Munster Reds players in the future. So they will have a high performance coaching hub based in Dublin for the next 3 years, as that's where most of their players are residing. But they'll also have a head coach working locally in Munster with their talent pathway and developing those players. And we very much hope that this will in the long term support Munster cricket far better and help grow the game at all levels.
And speaking of the emerging competition that was announced, it was obviously a well received announcement. How do you see that complementing the existing pathway structure already in place?
I think it's hugely important, something we've been talking about for a while now. The provincial unions have been working very hard for years at their talent pathway level, with youth representative teams playing and training throughout the year, coaching improving all the time, facilities improving year on year, albeit a little bit slower because of the costs involved in that. And no difference to the island teams needing a talent pipeline from the senior interpro structure. Each provincial team needs a pipeline to prepare their players for first class and list A cricket. And we feel that an emerging interpro competition will really start to help address and help that process. We have a successful National Academy programme, which is helping develop the best young players and give them greater support. But this competition will give many of those players the chance to play against each other and push for a place in their provincial team, which is really important to the whole structure.
And finally, a question that's been asked is, what about the hopes for the return of first-class red ball cricket?
Yeah, look, there's no doubt about our ambition to play more first-class red ball cricket. We know that this format will help develop players in so many ways. We cannot be attempting to play Test cricket and not preparing for that format by playing first-class cricket. Players learn so much by playing the longer form of the game. And so, we would like to expand this in time without any doubt. But right now, we've got a limited budget, will do for the next few years. And to have 3 white ball World Cups to compete in the next 3 years, we've really had to strategically think about our priorities. And with that, it's meant pushing more of our investment into the white ball game, prioritising that format until we have more revenues to invest in red ball cricket. We do have some Test cricket planned over the next 3 years in the Future Tours programme, and therefore we have to play some red ball cricket to ensure we're ready for that and give ourselves the best chance of success. So we do have some plans to play some red ball cricket, even if it's not part of the interprovincial structure right now. Longer term, we hope that'll change.
I did say finally, but actually one more question. The Wolves flew out yesterday to Bangladesh. I mean, you're still looking forward to seeing a good series there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think incredibly difficult for the players. Not only last year with the various lockdowns and the limited amount of cricket that was played, but particularly over this winter as well. I think we've done really well to get out to the UAE for the squad. But our emerging players and the next cabs off the rank, if you like, it's really important for them to have a chance to play during the winter. There's been a lot of work going on indoors, but limited with one-to-one sessions because of the restrictions. So to get a month's cricket out in Bangladesh, where we'll be heavily tested, they have extremely talented young players. It's going to be tough cricket for them, tough conditions, and all the COVID things to deal with as well. But immensely important for our players to have that cricket. And so fortunately, there's been an immense amount of work behind the scenes to get the tour going. We hope that it goes without a hitch, and the guys have a really fantastic experience over the next 4 weeks.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Richard.
Not at all. Thank you, Craig.
Andrew White, Chair of National Selectors for Men. Welcome, Andrew.
Hey, Craig.
So pulling back the curtain a bit on the process, I mean, what was involved in the selection of the squads?
Initially, Craig, I suppose it was conversations over a period of time with each of the provincial coaches, trying to understand from them what they felt was going to be required to make their provincial side stronger, not just in terms of numbers, but in terms of personnel, what fit best for their requirements. And then Graham Ford and I went away and sat down, deliberated for quite a long time in terms of putting together 4 squads that we then went back to the selectors with. And it wasn't just about them looking through their own provincial union players that we had proposed, but right across the board, because as selectors, they're very well aware and brilliant at looking at the bigger picture in terms of what Ireland requires, what Graham Ford requires, to make the Irish team stronger. And therefore, for them to be able to sign off as a group with 4 unions rather than just their own was something that was really important.
And what do you hope is the impact of this selection process?
Certainly, we hope it's obviously going to be very competitive. If you have that best v best scenario, I think one of the key points of this whole process was we wanted to make sure that Munster wasn't just a competitive team, but it was a team capable of winning games of cricket. That has been missing over the last number of years. Obviously, the Munster side in previous history has been quite a young side and used as a way for young players to find their feet at interprovincial level. That hasn't really worked to the extent that we wanted it to. So by strengthening Munster to the stage whereby they're capable of winning games is going to be really important to the tournament. And even if you go back as recently as 2018, the Northwest won the championship, albeit in the longer format, which we won't see any of this year. But it's the impact that Niall O'Brien, for example, had when Porterfield had come back into the Northwest Warriors outfit. But Niall O'Brien had a brilliant impact, both on and off the field. I think there was one occasion, he got 160, and Stuart Thompson got 100 odd batting with him. And it's the impact that these guys can have on those around them. I think if memory serves me right, Aaron Gillespie did well in that game. Davy Rankin did well. They got 500. Leinster were forced to follow on. And that's the sort of competitive cricket that we really need to see. We want Leinster put under pressure. We haven't changed the Leinster side very much because what we want is we want the other unions to come up to that level. If we dilute Leinster too much and spread their resources across the other provinces, then you're really diluting the whole competition. So the onus is still there for the other unions to rise to that Leinster challenge. And we want Leinster. Leinster has dominated the tournament, as I mentioned previously, since its inception. We want them to continue to strive to do so, but ultimately I know that the other unions are right behind them and I'll be looking to take a few of the trophies off them.
And there were 48 players selected. What sort of rationale or criteria were you looking at to shortlist that 48, and why were they particularly chosen?
That's a good question. I think we wanted 48 players who were available to play for Ireland, and that doesn't necessarily mean in the here and now. Obviously, you'll have seen the likes of Graham Hume and Ryan Pretorius going away with the Wolves. They're not eligible to play for Ireland until next year. But we wanted to create a situation whereby those players that were in the country and available to play for Ireland at some stage in the future, maybe obviously coming from overseas, that they were involved in the interprovincial series. Not only does it add strength and depth and increases that best v best scenario, but it also gives them an environment in which to learn more about their cricket, more about cricket in Irish conditions. And if you take the likes of Graham Hume and Ryan Pretorius as 2 examples, we want them to be in a position that when they do qualify, they're in a much better place to be selected, rather than waiting until they're ready for, or their qualification period is complete, and then start thinking about, right, well, where are they with their cricket? What do they need to do to get into a position whereby they're ready to play international cricket? So it's that's part of the jigsaw process, and it's incorporating those guys along with all our local players who need to be seen to be playing competitive cricket on a very regular basis.
So you're talking about 48 players there to start the process. I mean, what is your message to players who may not have made that 48, may not have made the final cut?
So whilst we've picked an initial 4 squads of 12, it's up to the unions then to look at players that they want to bring into that training environment, and they can add players at various stages throughout the year. Obviously, the coaches will have to take into consideration, fitness, current form, so it's not restricted to those 12. And of course, there will be players who will put up their hands throughout the course of a year, and that's exactly what we want. We want them performing in club cricket The emerging tournaments will be really important as well for the pathway of players, especially our really young players who are involved in club cricket. But now with that emerging programme, it gives them an opportunity to test themselves against players of similar ability across the other unions, and ask the question of the coaches, pick me for the interprovincial series. That's exactly what we want. And, it's happened many times before, and let's hope that they put pressure on those that are currently in the squad.
Right, well, thank you very much. That's it for today. Thank you for joining us, Andrew.
A pleasure. Thank you.